Hi, I'm John Waterhouse. Welcome to the original Science of Mind as taught by Dr. Barbara Waterhouse. This is a great class. Barbara's teaching from the second chapter, which is her favorite in today's class. So enjoy it, and I will see you at the end.
And what we do is we simply know the truth. So we begin with this idea that there is only one. It is life and light and love. It is the presence and the power of Spirit itself. It is in and through all things. It is beyond the concept of thing. It is everywhere, every when. And so just let your brain expand a little bit to that which goes beyond our ability to comprehend. But it is everywhere, every moment, every place, everyone. And then we move into the idea that since Spirit is all in all, then what we are must be a part of that. We must be somehow the expression of the oneness in form as us. So we open to the light that we are, to the love that we are, to the life that we are. There's nothing wrong with us. We are perfect, whole, and complete right here and right now. And so since we know that we are made out of divine substance, we know that whatever Spirit is, we are. Whatever God is, we are. Whatever life is, we are. And so we claim and affirm that which is already true for us. We are prosperous because we are made out of the abundance of all life. We are healthy because the balance, the health, and the wholeness of life is us now. We are loved and loving because we are made out of love itself. And we are joyously, wildly successful because that creative force that created all of life is what we are now. And so we know that we hear what we need to hear, we know what we need to know, we learn what we need to learn, and we bring these ideas into form in our life. And then the only thing to do, we've got it all, is to go whoopee. So we move into a state of thanksgiving, of gratitude for being alive, for being a part of all there is, for the power and the presence that is within us, for the ability to manifest our lives in better and better ways. And then we let it go because we have done our work. We have known the truth. And as we know it, it must show up in form. So it's done. It's over. And together we say, and so it is. I love this lesson. This is my favorite lesson in the whole book. It is the part that I quote the most. For me, it has the most meat and substance to it. And I love this lesson. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in going through this. And I want to start off on page 82. You heard me say this. And read the beginning paragraph of the introduction of lesson 2. And Ernest says, mental science, which is the science of mind and spirit, makes a tremendous claim when it states that it can free the individual from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. But it makes this statement without hesitation and without qualification. It does not retract from that claim, and it never will. This is what you usually don't get, because I'm done by then. It does, however, carefully set forth the conditions under which it operates and the laws governing life, warning that unless he understands these conditions and obeys these laws, he will not receive full benefit from the science of mind. So what it says is that we are willing to stand on the mountaintops and say every last person in this world can be freed from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. And we are not going to qualify it. We're not going to put conditions on it and say if they're in a first world country they can. If they are born in a certain socioeconomic status, they can. If they have a certain education, they can. If they got the vaccines, they can. We're not going to do that. We're going to say that every last person on this planet can be free. And what are the biggies to be free from? The bondage of illness, sickness. When he wrote this, we didn't have antibiotics. Think about it. One of the first things that he did was open a tuberculosis sanatorium in, was it Santa Monica?
Yeah, I think
Somewhere in
so.
Southern California.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not a
Santa
California
Monica.
person, so I don't really remember exactly where it was. But he and his brother Fenwick opened a place where people who had tuberculosis could go, and they did spiritual mind treatment. They did healing on them. And that was his first thing of, how do I want to present these ideas in the world? How do I want to bring forth the genius and the gift that I have so that it will help humanity? So he brought people in with tuberculosis. They didn't have, rescue inhalers or nebulizers. I'm searching my medical words here. Nebulizers or antibiotics or decent surgical techniques or anything like that. People got sick, they often died. And what he's saying is that this teaching can free everybody from the bondage of sickness. And I've heard it said, if someone's got one breath, they can be healed. Unless they are cold, stone cold, dead. And even then, perhaps that is a healing in and of itself, but that's like a practitioner conversation, so we're not going to have it right now. We're talking about physical healing, pick up your bed and walk, move forward in life, singing and dancing, feeling great. So it's saying that every person on the planet can be healed of sickness. Every person on the planet can be healed of poverty. And if you know anything about the rest of the world, there's some serious poverty going on. And what he's saying is that with this teaching, doesn't matter what circumstance you find yourself in, it doesn't matter what the culture is, what the society is, what the country is, what the date is, it doesn't matter, that when you learn to use the laws of this science of mind and spirit, I don't know when we dropped the and spirit, I love that. That's the original name, Science of Mind and Spirit. When you learn to use that, you can lift yourself out of poverty. You can have a physical healing. And you can be happy. You can be happy. It can free the individual from the bondage of illness, poverty, and unhappiness. And what he said is, way back in the 20s, he said, we're not going to back down. We've never backed down from this, and we never will. It doesn't matter how bad things look. It doesn't matter how big the story is of what's wrong. Learning to use the laws of mind can change condition no matter what. No matter what. And so you have healings, you have demonstrations, and you move into a consciousness of joy. You become happy. And I don't think he was talking about surface level happy. I think he was talking about deep joy that you can experience no matter what. And I think that's just such a ballsy thing to say. Just to stand up there and say, I don't care what the condition, I don't care what the circumstance, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are, I don't care what's going on. This teaching can free you. And one of the things that I learned a couple of years ago is that we have a study group led by a woman in Tehran. Now, it's not widely publicized, because it's not a great thing for people to know in that country that they're doing, but there are people meeting in what we would consider to be very oppressive environments, and they're using this law to experience freedom, health, prosperity, and joy. So I love this. I love this lesson. I love this introduction. I love the way it starts out, just to say, this is who we are, this is what we believe, and this is what is possible. And then we move on to great ideas in this chapter. The first one that he addresses is the idea of suffering. And forgive me, all of the Buddhists that are in the room. I love the Buddha, I love all of that, but he says the first noble truth is that life is suffering, and I do not agree. I do not agree that life is suffering. I do understand that at times there is pain, and at times there are challenges that we grow through, but what's the difference between pain and suffering? Michael?
Your interpretation of the situation.
Your interpretation of the situation, and often if you feel that there's no way out. If you're at the gym and you're pushing yourself and you have pain, but you're gonna get that thing up there or do that thing, whatever it is you do. I used to watch John work out. He could bench, what is it when you do your legs?
Squats.
Press, 500 pounds. It was amazing. And he would be, having all these noises coming out of him. He was gonna get that thing up there. But you know that there's an end to it. You know that you're in charge of it. You know that it's not happening to you, that you're not a victim. I think the whole concept of victimization is what keys into suffering. That when you feel stuck, when you feel like you have no control, that it's never going to end, then we move from pain and struggle into suffering. Yes, Adami?
I think that suffering is optional, and
You're a
pain
wise young
is
being.
uncontrollable.
And suffering is optional and what?
And pain is uncontrollable.
Pain is uncontrollable. Sometimes you can control your pain. Sometimes you do things and it's painful. See, there's nothing wrong with pain. Pain is a wonderful message from your body. Like if you touch something hot and it's painful, you immediately pull your hand back. Sometimes in relationships, when you find yourself in pain over and over again, that's an opportunity to think maybe something's going on. So I don't want to say that pain is bad, but it seems like pain has an end point to it. And when I've been involved in suffering in my own life, I thought it was never going to end. This was just going to be the way it was forever. So, what Ernest is saying, maybe the Buddha had a different take on it. I don't know, what was that, 12,000 years ago he said that? So, if you have a circle and you say there's a pink elephant in the room and you whisper it into everybody's ear, by the time it gets back around, it has nothing to do with the pink elephant. Maybe the Buddha didn't even say the first noble truth is that all life is suffering. I don't know. But my guess is that he had some kind of a different meaning that I'm taking. So you do not have to suffer. Jane?
Yeah, I would love to have a definition of suffering. What is it? I mean, I've never quite understood it.
Well, what do you think it is?
Well, I think it's things are happening that you don't like, but so, I don't really.
Well, what we just talked about was the idea that you were out of control, that something or someone is, you feel like, because that's never happened, something or someone is doing something to you and you don't have any control about it, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to end.
So that's suffering.
That's my idea of suffering. What is your idea of suffering? Things that you don't like, but things that I don't like happen all the time. The light turns red. Deal with it, Barbara. Realize that you are being divinely guided and directed by legions of angels that are keeping you from being where you would have been if it hadn't turned red and all things are in perfect order, the universe supports me. That's not suffering.
So maybe suffering is when things don't go according to the way you want them to go and you're powerless to change them.
If you feel you're powerless to change things, I do think that has suffering involved. But one of the great things that we learn here is that we are not powerless to change things. We can be free from the bondage of illness, poverty, and unhappiness. If we understand these laws and if we use them, and he says obey, I don't like that word obey, if we come into alignment with them, we come into alignment with the laws of life and use them in a conscious way, then we can alleviate the suffering. I'm just going to have to bring this out, it's too heavy, it's twisting. I'm going to have to, we can alleviate the idea of suffering in our lives because we then take control of it. One of our members, Rebecca Gallo, is on the Camino, it's a
Camino Trail.
Yeah, but what's it called? The El Camino de Santiago, yes. And Barbara Brady, who's in my Practitioner 1 class, finished it up about a year ago. Now, they have 300 miles, 500 miles, 500? You're so smart, thank you. 500 miles to walk. And there was a picture of Rebecca on Facebook today with her backpack and her rain gear and her boots and all of that. And I think she's gone 80 miles or something, because it was like 220 miles left before she got to the end. Now someone could look at that and say, that's suffering, that's painful, that's awful, but she paid good money to go do that. She got herself on an airplane and bought all her stuff, and this is the second time she's done it in the last few years.
Oh my God.
So she is putting herself in an environment that some people would say was crazy, some people would say was painful, and yet she's doing it to have some kind of a result in her life. And I don't pretend to understand that, because I don't like that kind of thing. So, you know, I'm not going to walk my dog, much less go out. I will, however, body surf in the ocean until I'm exhausted.
We don't have proper water.
So the idea of suffering, I think, has within it a sense of powerlessness, and the idea of freedom has inherent within it a sense of being empowered. And it doesn't take everything working out for you to have that sense of empowerment. It takes a little bit to come into alignment with the laws of life, to be able to use them, to have enough understanding that teaches us that we don't see it, that we don't think it because we see it because we think it. And when people are very busy reacting to the circumstances in their life, and they have no clue that they are at cause to their experience, the idea that you are experiencing the life at the level that you are, or in the conditions that you are, it's really not levels, as the conditions that you are, because you are believing it, you're creating it, you're attracting it, however you want to use that language, you are manifesting these conditions based on the inside conversation that you're having, the inside feelings, the inside beliefs. And people will say, well, of course I'm thinking that. Of course I believe that. Of course I feel that way. That's the only thing I've ever known. I don't have enough. And to think anything different is crazy. Welcome to the crazies. That can look at a situation and say, there's a power greater than this in all of life. It is what I am. I am manifested out of that. And I have the ability to manifest my life in a different way. My experience of life as suffering is not God ordained. There is no power in the universe that wants you to hurt. And you know, this goes against a lot of religions. Goes against a lot of them. Not only Christianity, it goes against a lot of them. Whatever God is, God does not want you to struggle. Doesn't want you to suffer. You haven't done anything wrong. There is no black mark on your soul. There is no penance that you have to pay. What we do have to do is wake up to the idea that we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings, beings of light and love, and that our lives are in our hands, and that we can create the most awful experience, or we can create the best experience. And that is up to us. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. We may say, well, everybody on the planet is not going to be free of the bondage of illness, poverty, and unhappiness until everybody's making $15 an hour minimum wage, until everybody has health care, until all the bombing has stopped, until everybody has a balanced food pyramid diet, or organic, non-gluten, healthy food, that kind of thing. That's our judgment placed over onto other people. Other people can be healthy. Other people can be can have more than enough, can consider themselves wealthy, and can be joyous. When John and I were working in public housing, John actually was working, I was tagging along. But John went all around the country for a number of years, and organized people in what's it called? No, I don't want to use the politically inappropriate words. So in the government subsidized housing developments. And he would organize everybody, and because, you know, he's all about empowering people, and when people come together and they organize and they have a voice and they can create their lives to be better, and what he would use would be vegetable gardens. So he would go into town, he would contact the county extension agency and elicit their assistance, and then he would target certain developments and go in there and talk to whoever is in charge, because in every culture and society, there are those people who really are the movers and the shakers and the ones in charge. So he would get a hold of those and he would have them buy in with the idea of, we're going to come put vegetable gardens out in the open green areas, and you can have vegetables. First thing they want, let's put a fence up. No, get no fence. Get no fence. You get to be a community. You get to watch out for everybody. You get to have a surplus. And there are people who would look at the living environment of those people, and I'll grant you, it's still in the U.S. You know, everybody in this country has got a great living environment. No matter if you're homeless under the bridge, you can go get a hot meal and a place to sleep if you wanted. So people would look at them and they would go, oh, so terrible, so sad. And you talk to them and no, not terrible, not sad, not sad. And what we would find is that they would have these 4 by 16 foot raised gardens, just drop it right on the grass. Fill it up with bags of dirt, put the little strings on for square foot gardening, plant the plants, give them the seeds, and leave, and then let them organize and show up once a month for their meetings and see how they're doing, meeting their neighbors, getting along with each other, chasing out the people who are trashing the gardens, those kinds of things. But we would talk to them, and instead of filling their entire garden up with vegetables, invariably they would plant flowers. Not all of them, but they would plant a few sections of the gardens with flowers. And even when someone who's the matriarch of a family and's got all these grandchildren living with her, even when she is looking at, these are the only fresh vegetables that she gets, she would take them and maybe split them in half or whatever and take them over to the neighbor and give them. And we were just floored at the sense, and they would say, I have so much. We have so much. We can give some away. And we can plant some flowers for beauty. And so I don't want us to get into this idea that says freeing the individual from the bondage of illness, poverty, and unhappiness means that their life looks a certain way. It means that they feel a certain way, and they feel a certain way about their life. If someone feels prosperous enough, rich enough, abundant enough, to take the greens out of their garden and go knock on somebody's door and give them to that person, that is a huge feeling. I know people who are making 6 figures and don't feel that prosperous. They're still all, oh, the taxes, oh, the market, oh, I just don't know. What a drag. And then you've got somebody else who's going, I got so much I can give it away. Don't worry about it. Big phrase over and over and over again. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Everything's okay. So when we talk about every person on the planet having more than enough, it doesn't look like we might think it looks. How their life looks is not our business. What is our business is this idea that says we can all use these laws to manifest our lives in the way that we want to manifest them, so that we can experience a greater level of living. And that there is no outside power that is out to get us or that has targeted us to suffer and struggle in life. And I'll grant you, there are a lot of circumstances that would point at the idea that life is struggle, life is suffering, and life is awful, and there's not enough. But it is our job to understand, to learn about these spiritual laws, and to come into alignment with them, to use them to show how that manifests a different experience in our lives. Has anybody ever had or been around someone who has had a miraculous healing? Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? A miraculous healing. That's when everybody says, no, you can't heal from this. Or, because, I'm in a prime position, I get a lot of inside story from a lot of people who come here, whether they've come here because they've tried everything else, now let's try God, or they come here and I hear about stories through their natural connection here. But I get the stories of the 3%, the 5%, the people who should not be walking around on the planet according to all of the medical research. And yet it happens. How does that happen? And when you have someone in a different kind of an environment, instead of going to a medical doctor, they go to some other kind of a doctor. They go to a shaman, or they go to a medicine woman, or they go to the herbalist in the village or whatever, and they're not getting the traditional kind of medicine that we have. They still have that healing. They still have that healing. There's a lot more research coming out now than ever that shows that if you have an expectation that anything will heal you, whether it's a prayer, whether it's essential oils, whether it's massage. There were decades in Russia that the only thing the hospitals had to offer was massage. They had no medicine, they had no IVs, they had no nothing. People would come there and the nurses would touch them. They would massage them. They got better. There's more and more research coming out that says if you have an expectation that whatever it is you're getting is going to heal you, it will heal you. It is the placebo effect. With the placebo effect, even when the patients are told that what they've been getting is a placebo, they still want it. Oh, I don't care, it's making me feel better. Well, it's not, there's nothing there. It's a capsule filled with an inert ingredient. I don't care, I want that. Keep giving me that pill, it's working. And sure enough, it works. Because there is a law of the universe that says what we think shows up in our lives. And if we think, oh, it's flu season, we're gonna get sick, if we think that, oh, that person sneezed on me, or it's in my genes, my grandfather, my father, died at this certain age, and now here I am, it's my birthday. I remember talking to David Alt, the minister in Atlanta. His grandfather died at 54, his father died at 54, his brother died at 54, and they all died of a massive heart attack. And he turned 54. He was working on his head. And now that was a few years ago, and he's gone through that milestone. But if he had simply looked at those outside conditions, he wouldn't be here right now. So people, they've got these outside conditions and they see it as something that's going to rule them instead of understanding that they rule the conditions. And more and more and more, people are coming around to this idea that says, what you think about changes what happens in your body. What you think about changes what happens in your body. I love the research that has someone saying, all I have to do is look at a piece of cake and I will put on weight. And they say that on a scale, and without taking in a sip of water or a bite of food, they are heavier than they were a moment ago. And we, as this organic system, actually we dry out and we lose weight. Just standing here, you're all losing weight right now. Every breath carries out cells and molecules out of your body. So to put weight on just by your thought, where did those molecules come from? We create that. We create the very molecules of our experience with our thought.
I was going to say that I was talking to a coworker of mine today, and she was saying that, telling me about this emotional crisis that she and her husband went through, and afterwards she got froggy mouth,
Right,
And she directly related the two, and I'm like,
which is great, then she can let it go.
right.
You have to let the
She
emotion
hasn't
go.
done that yet.
April's coworker, let it go. And the fibromyalgia will disappear. Let it go. That's what all Louise Hay's stuff is about. Louise Hay found science of mind when they told her that they had cut out everything they could cut out. She could not have another operation, and yet she managed to get cancer again. And the phrase that her science of mind minister told her was, "I don't think you have come this far to die of cancer." And when she got that, it went away. So all of those times when you open up the You Can Heal Your Life book and look it up, it's just giving you a way to wrap your head around how you can be in control, how you can let it go, how you can release anything that may be manifesting in your physical body, and then your physical body goes right back to its natural state of health and wholeness. So one of the first things to get in all of this is there is no outside power that wants you to suffer, that wants you to struggle, that's going to dangle a wonderful life in front of you and then snatch it away right before you get in and laugh sadistically from the top of a cloud somewhere. That is not the way life works. And remember, all these last few weeks we've been talking about the circle, we've been talking about the science of mind symbol, the circle of creation on an absolute level, that whatever God is, whatever spirit is, it is the circle, as Meister Eckhart said, the circle that has no circumference and whose center is everywhere. And Troward said, in order for unity to exist, it must exist in its totality at every point simultaneously. Quantum physicists said the same thing with the unified field, that the unified field exists completely at every point simultaneously. So, whatever spirit is, there is that manifestation of us. Ernest calls it an individualization. In one part of the reading, he says that if you want to look at God as a person in terms of if it has self-awareness, there must be a personhood to that of self-awareness and free choice, then we are all people in that greater person. I like the idea of the light bulb in the shoebox with the little holes punched in it, and you see the rays. Yeah, you shake it out.
I know,
Shake
that's
it
how
out.
I feel.
I like the idea of the light bulb in the shoebox with the little holes poked in it, and you see the rays coming out of the shoebox. And you can't see the light bulb. All you see are different rays, and it's tempting to think that each one of those rays is all by itself, not knowing that it's all coming from the one light, the one bulb in this case. We are all coming from the one, however you want to understand that or try to understand it, try to wrap your head around it, and that whatever is true of the one must be true of us, and I just don't believe we have a suffering, struggling concept of God. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that suffering and struggling is an inherent quality of deity. So if it's not an inherent quality of deity, how can it be wished upon us? How can the will of God be anything less than that of love and joy and wholeness and happiness and prosperity and health? Whatever that is, it must be the will of its own nature. Does that make sense? So if you have any idea that you've ever done anything wrong, it's time to let it go. You couldn't have done anything wrong. Take a deep breath. Whatever you did was the only thing you could have done. If you could have done anything different, you would have. You didn't, so you couldn't. If you were in that exact same situation with the tools and the understanding that you had at that second, you'd do the same thing. You'd do the exact same thing. So there's no need for blame or guilt or shame for anything. We did what we did with what we had in our experience of life. There is no outside power that is looking to punish us for us doing the only thing that we could have done with the tools that we had at the moment. There is only that expression of greater life and greater love. That's it. That's all that there is. That is what we're made out of. The center whose point is everywhere. That means the center of the divine has to be at the point of you, right now. Right now. The point of you, right now. Has to be. And so how can that be wrong or bad or limited or a mistake or anything like that? It can't. You are pure, perfect spirit. We are finding our way, I'll grant you that. But we are pure, perfect spirit. And it is our job to come into alignment with that perfection, that purity, and to live our lives from that vantage point. That's our job. Our job is to come into alignment with the laws of life that say our life is not happening to us, we are happening to our life. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do about that? Well, if you have a belief that says there's something wrong with you, something bad with you, that somehow this giant anthropomorphic deity, this big guy, very angry with some forgiveness issues, the traditional idea of God is very dysfunctional. So there's this big guy up on the cloud. If you have this idea that whatever God is, it's just going to get you, then you will create experiences in alignment with that belief. And then you look at them and go, it happened. God got me. No, didn't happen at all. What we did is we are so amazingly powerful and we have such free will that we can create our lives any way we want to. We can create our lives as being absolutely loved and precious and powerful and wonderful, or we can create our lives as struggling and suffering and feeling miserable in life. But don't blame it on some outside deity. There's only a force in life that supports you and lifts you into wherever you're going. And remember, in the middle of the circle where we have law. Again, circle. With no outside thing. We have law, spirit, law, body. This doesn't have any ability to think. It only takes what you give it. You're the thinker in your life. So if you're experiencing things which are misery, struggle, suffering, limitation, illness, lack, it's not because God did it to you. It's because the entire universe is taking whatever you are thinking about and bringing it into form. I like the idea that the law is my servant. I can order it around. And the only thing that it can say is, yes, your wish is my command. That's the only thing that it can say, and it is up to me to direct it in a smart way for me and the other people that I love in my life. Sandy.
One of the things in the reading, I'm loving this language because it reminds me how far I've come, honestly. One of the things that I actually read that really stuck a chord with me is the only suffering is through necessity of the learning process.
Right, right. That if you're suffering, it's because you created suffering. And as much as we would like to have a savior in our world, there is nothing that life can do to intervene on our behalf and say, you have married this person 3 times already. You know how it's going to go. It can't do it. All it can do is bring about the result of your cause, the effect of your cause, the fruition of your creation. And then if we look at that and we go, my life is just doomed, then we create our life being doomed. If we can look at that and go, I did this, there's something familiar about this. Let me see, I'm broken down on the side of the road. I bought a terrible car because I was terrified that I wouldn't have enough money. And here I am broken down on the side of the road again. I used to do that all the time. When I was young, my car limit price was $100. And sure enough, I would find a car that cost $100. But then what I got was a $100 car. $100 cars don't run. So finally, I got that I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and I don't like it, and if I want to have something different, I'm gonna have to do something different. And I bit the bullet and bought what for me was a very expensive car. I forget how much it was. I'm sure it was under $1,000. But it was an Oldsmobile, wasn't a Cutlass, it was like a 482 or something. I'm talking back in the late 70s, convertible, boom, 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 boom. I was on top of the world. I had an expensive car. Now I wouldn't get in that car. At the time, I made a huge jump up, and I don't act that out again. I don't pick people to be in my life that are abusive to me. I don't do that anymore. So the end result of suffering, we're going to look at it and go, what did I do here? How did I get myself in this pickle? How did I set myself up? How did I take yet the same job with a different company to where I ended up in the same situation? Oh, I did that. But it's not required. Suffering is not required to learn. There is no pain, no gain. That's something that we made up. We can learn and grow in love and peace and joy. We really can. But in order to do that, we have to be aware. That's why the first of the 5 points of power is I always pay attention. We have to be aware enough to be able to pick and choose how we're going to direct this law that always says, your wish is my command, into a way that is healing and uplifting and joyous. And when we do that, then things just start to happen. And people come up to us and say, oh, you're so lucky. I'm not lucky. I have worked diligently to control my thoughts, to think about what I want, to see the good in things, to see the God in people, and to forgive and release everything that is unlike that. And then my life manifests. But you know, I was happy before it manifested. I felt prosperous before it manifested. I felt great before the diagnosis was changed. I did that, and then the rest of my life caught up. But one of the really first things and important things there is no outside power that's trying to hurt you. There is no force in life that wants you to fail. There's only that life and love that lifts you up, that you can pick and choose where you want to set it in motion and how you want to create it, and all it can do is bring forth into form. And when you can make that jump from the guy on the cloud to a presence within you, you've made a huge leap in your spiritual process. So we've gotten suffering. Let's talk about sin.
Your favorite word.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
My first car was a 1982 Corolla Tercel. My grandpa told me that Toyotas never break down. They didn't.
That's great.
No matter what I did to it, I never put any oil in it. I used it. I was horrible with that car. That car, now every other car after that, same experience. But because he said it was a Toyota, and therefore Toyotas were superior to all cars,
It's all
I
about
believe.
belief.
Yeah, never break down.
People with dead batteries out there, we'll go over there and we'll do treatment. I know that the energy of the universe is pouring through this battery now, and we can all hear it. Vroom, and it starts up, and the person's going, yeah, I gotta get AAA out here. And sure enough, they turn the key and the thing starts. Because it's all about thought. The outer is always an after effect of the inner. So it's our job to be very mindful about the inner and to allow ourselves to create our lives the way we want it. And it is my personal mission, if you want to use that word, to get this information out to as many people as possible, which is why everything on our website is free. Everything on our website is free. And we have 40 to 50,000 hits a month of people listening to things like this class. Hello. People listening to the audio recordings if they don't have the bandwidth for a video. People downloading books. People getting these ideas that say there's a way out of your problem. Misery is not God ordained, that you can create a better life. If you've got one last breath, your body can have a healing. If you've got one idea of expansion and growth, you can have more than enough. And if you've got one sense of happiness and joy, you can manifest that. I have seen miserable rich people and very happy people who I would term didn't have enough. And they were fine. They were just absolutely fine. So you can't look at the outside and judge them. But it is our job to come into alignment with these laws of life and live our lives accordingly. And then when you do that, it naturally rubs off. Have you noticed your family, your friends? They just kind of get a little bit more positive. Either that or they run like crazy. But they get a little bit more positive. They're a little bit happier. You're contagious. And perhaps they start seeing the possibility, I don't know. But it is up to us to be able to come into alignment with these laws, and then absolutely nothing is impossible. So let's talk about sin. What is
Just
sin?
a quick question before we go.
Sure, Roxanne.
Because it's kind of on the same line, because I remember reading in the recent thing where he said, you can think for others, so to speak. And you gave the example of the car, and it sounded like the owner of the car was still sort of skeptical, but the treatment changed the car.
Right.
And that's where I get still confused with this teaching about if we're creating our reality and they stayed stuck in their negative thing about the car, why didn't the car stay broken? Because it was their car.
Because they wouldn't be in my parking lot if they were that stuck. I mean, really, if somebody gets anywhere close to me, they are at some level in alignment with who I am. People who really don't want this, they don't come anywhere close to us. Don't come anywhere close to us. But the neat thing about this teaching is that we can think for other people because we are all one. Rays of light coming from the same light bulb. When you go back, we're all one. And so my consciousness and your consciousness are the same. So I can think for you. And yes, you have to be kind of in alignment, but that's what practitioners are all about. Nobody goes to a practitioner asking for help if they don't want help. They don't go. People come to see me, talk about their problems. Well, have you gone to see a practitioner? Absolutely not. Well, maybe you're attached to your problem. You know, maybe if you really wanted something to shift, you would be asking for help. So we have 30 practitioners in this center. And people go to them all the time saying, I can't wrap my head around this, help me. And we can do that, it's great. When someone's just left the doctor and comes with a diagnosis and they've been told that they're in that there's only a 5% chance of them living for a few years, much less having a lifelong recovery, they don't have the ability in that moment to embrace the total health and wholeness, love and joy of life. They don't have it. So they come and they say, help me, give me some of that, give me something to hold on to so I can start to let go of that other idea and embrace this idea that possibly I can have a healing. Yes, Betty?
I have a question because in one of the other signs of mindfulness, we had this discussion about the ability to heal someone else if they aren't willing to heal. That, you know, can you do a treatment on someone and help them or fix their problem if they're not in alignment with it? And I kept saying that you can't because there are so many people out there that are attached to their problems. And if they're not willing to let go of it, they're not going to heal.
Yes and no. This is a subtle
That's why I
question.
needed to get
Yeah.
that clarity.
I believe that when we come into this experience, it is at the exact moment that we choose on a soul level. And when we leave this experience, it is at the exact moment we choose to leave, and no one can stop that. Someone can be run over by a train and not die. Someone can have somebody sneeze at them and they're dead. You know, that's a soul choice of staying or going. When you are so clear, even if someone has a conscious attachment to their problem, being very enmeshed in their story and their position of how they're victimized or what they may be using that illness to manipulate the people around them, it's only a conscious attachment. And that is hardly awareness. Our conscious awareness is very small. There is that within us that is huge. And so that part of them can override their conscious part. We say, you know, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, but it's not the statement of I'm sick. Forgive me, because I told you that. But it's not. It is the way that we set that into law, and then that takes it. And if we look at this not as the absolute circle that we've had for the last couple of weeks, but the relative, I am making a point, Betty. And this is us, law, and our affairs. In here, that which is beyond our physical essence, but that is still in the realm of consciousness or awareness, we're connected with everybody and everything. That is what Ernest calls the individual use of universal subjectivity. Big words. We're connected. When you get away from your body, you're all energy, and they can register that energy. And if you realize that there's no end to that energy, but it just goes on throughout infinity, we are all connected with somebody else. So if at a soul level, I have chosen to act out some kind of a physical illness, and I've let my name get put out on the internet for some kind of prayer list because somebody feels sorry for me and they want people to pray. I mean, I'm trying to be as disconnected from this as possible. And I am really entrenched in my illness and all that it gives me and all that it validates in my belief system. That's still only a little tiny part of my awareness. There's that huge part of me that is open and aware of the love and the light and the life and the joy of life. And so if someone comes and treats for you or prays for you, that part very much can come forward. Anybody can be healed. And yes, if you don't want that healing, you can recreate problems in your life. I've talked to a number of people who've ended up with very big cancer diagnoses. And they've said, I can chart back in my life when I had illnesses and I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't listen to my body, I wouldn't listen to my emotions, I wouldn't make the changes that I knew I needed to make so that I could have my life be the way that I wanted. And I guess now it's either change or leave this plane, and so they have that motivation. But someone can recreate their problems, absolutely. But the part of them that you're talking about, I want you to understand, is so small. That conscious part of us is so small, and that spiritual nature of us is so big, that I think it's very easy to hook into that part. And then not only do they have the physical healing, but they have the emotional healing, they have the mental healing, they have the spiritual healing, and come into alignment with that state of love and joy that they are, that state of divinity within them. So don't give a lot of power to someone just being a nasty person, you know, of just really being negative and awful. That's such a little part of them. And they wouldn't be at the receiving end of the prayer or the request if there was not some kind of agreement for that connection.
But the part that I have a hard time dealing with is those that, you know, have a specific illness that are so enmeshed in it. If,
So what?
if on a cosmic level, you send healing to them, even if they were healed, they manifest something else in their life
They could, or they could have a healing all over. They could have not only a physical healing, but because they had that connection, they could have an emotional, a mental, a spiritual healing that goes along with that. Don't get too caught up in the outer expression of people. Has not anyone had a bad day? You know, you don't want to hold that. You don't want that to be your label of who you are. And has not anyone ever really held on to their problems? I mean, how many times do people come weeping in my office? They left me, and I'm thinking, thank God they left you. You needed to be left years ago. So the statement is, they did for you only what you were unwilling to do for yourself. Yes. So don't be too attached to the outer. That's part of this whole metaphysical experience. Is the outer is old news. If someone's sick, if someone's cranky, if someone's just an awful person, it's still old news. Move into that state of freshness to be able to see them as the amazing, wonderful being that they are. Help that come out instead of saying, you're awful, you're never gonna heal, which really is pretty judgmental, saying, you don't deserve to heal. You're not nearly positive and loving enough to have a healing. You're doomed. Okay? Great. Any other questions? Yes, Shari. Shari.
Sorry, sorry.
The other half of what she was asking, if I am around people who are not very spiritual, or they're living a lifestyle that is not very loving and caring, will I still be able to uphold mine? Because a lot of times if I'm around that negativity long enough, it becomes harder and harder to focus on the love and
Spiritual
positivity.
practice.
Okay.
Home for the holidays. Being around negative people. That is your opportunity to really be clear about who you are. It only means what you say it means. Nobody controls you. Nobody is the boss of you. Nobody holds your emotions or your mental state but you. And sometimes when you're in that circumstance, all you've done is gone to the gym and picked up the heavier weights because you're ready to be stronger. Another technique for that, however, is you can put a bubble around you, you can fill it up with light and joy, and you can make the outside heart as concrete so that that energy bounces off. When we get closer to the holidays, I'm going to recommend you go to the mall. Better yet, Walmart.
Oh,
And feel the energy the day after Thanksgiving. Feel the energy, be aware of that which is yours and that which is not yours. And let go of that which is not yours. Because there are plenty of upset people carrying energy that is not theirs. So let it go. And that's all part of your journey of growth into greater levels of love. You know, Mother Teresa didn't say, oh, these people are too sick to heal, or, oh, it's just so negative being in Calcutta, take people to the States. She used every moment as a way to open up her heart. And that's our job.
Welcome back. I'm knowing that you had a great time with Barbara tonight, hearing her teachings, her wisdom, and learning a little bit more about the science of mind. So we've had a great class, and now we're just going to close it out and send us all on our way. So join me in this knowing of truth, that there is a power and a presence that dwells in, through, and as all of us. We are the presence of the divine, alive and well on planet Earth. And this class has revealed exactly that within us, that we are in charge. We have the power to control our circumstances and our situation by knowing the truth of who we are and being clear about what it is that we're calling into our experience. And knowing that that is so, I know that we now leave this time together, experiencing the fullness and richness of life wherever we go and in whatever we do. And that Barbara's words stay with us, so that we know that life is unfolding exactly as it must, right here, right now, and always. So I bless each one that shares in this class experience, and know that all is in perfect order, because God is still all there is. And that is the truth. So in gratitude and love, I simply let it be. And so it is. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.